Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to day 2 of the 2025 Stand Up for Grain Safety Week. My name is Barb Grove, and I'll be your moderator today. I work for Central Valley Ag, an agriculture cooperative in Nebraska, Kansas, and Iowa. Our theme this year is We All Have a Piece in This. And with that, I want you to think throughout the week, throughout the day, what is it that you do that has a piece to the puzzle of safety? How are you saving yourself, sending yourself home every day? And how are you helping your coworkers to work safe every day? So far, we have about 130 participants in today's session. That's very exciting. I want to make sure everybody's prepared on what to expect throughout the day. We want to be interactive, and we will have myself leading today with some questions. We'll have a great presentation today on fatigue. And so we want to make sure you get the most out of it. If you have any technical questions, please email grainsafety2010@gmail.com, and that should pop up in the chat. So again, if you're having any technical questions, try that email first, or do a private chat to Salah. You'll see his name in the participants. He is our Zoom master today from the University of Illinois. So he'll help you out if you're having any issues. So our learning sessions are brought to you by the Grain Elevator and Processing Society, or GEEPS, and the Grain Handling Safety Council, GHSC, with a lot of generous support of our sponsors. If you haven't registered for the rest of this week's events, there's still time to do so. Use the link that's in the chat box for standupforgrainsafety.org. And remember that we have 2 sessions in the afternoons that are Spanish language sessions, and today is one of them. So if you have employees that you feel would learn better in a Spanish session, make sure to have them jump on this afternoon. You know, as we are dedicated to safety, we want to remind everybody of our rights and our responsibilities. Employers are required to provide a safe and healthy workplace free of known hazards, even if you are not subject to OSHA enforcement. And as an employee, you have the right to a safe and healthy workplace free of hazards and to report concerns without fear of retaliation. All right, so these learning sessions today wouldn't be possible without the generous support of our sponsors and our partners. Bartlett Grain Company, Central States Center for Agriculture Safety and Health, CS Cash, Central Valley Ag, the Grain Elevator and Processing Society, or GEEPS, Grain and Feed Association of Illinois, Grain Journal, Iowa State University, Kansas State University, Lamar Advertising Company, the National Grain and Feed Association, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, University of Nebraska Medical Center, and the Union Pacific Railroad. So let's show our appreciation by putting the clapping emoji in the chat box. Show us your participation today. So a link will be posted in the chat box at the end of the presentation today. So you can sign up for an attendance certificate and recognize your stand-up participation and receive a stand-up certificate by registering at standupforgrainsafety.org. This session is recorded, and it'll be available on our Stand Up for Grain Safety website probably within a week. And we want to encourage your participation. We want to hear from you during these sessions. So during our sessions, we'll have polls, we'll have chat storms, we'll have surveys, and we'll have Q&A. And at the end of today's session, when you exit the Zoom, there'll be a very short survey that will pop up in your browser. We encourage you to complete that to share your thoughts and suggestions for ideas for topics for next year. So let's start our participation today by telling everybody in the chat box where you are coming from today, where you're joining us from. That's always very interesting to see. And there is a poll up. So if everyone would like to make sure to take that poll also, in telling us how many people might be viewing with you today. We know sometimes people to get together as a team and they go through these things. So we want to see, we don't want to miss anybody and seeing who's attending with us today. All right. So while everybody is finishing up that poll and telling us where you're coming from, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. Our speaker today is Ellen Dyson. She is with the University of Nebraska Med Center. She is an assistant professor and outreach coordinator for the Central State Center of Agriculture, Safety, and Health. And Ellen, if you'd like to go ahead and turn on your camera. All right. And go ahead and share screen. And Ellen, you can give us a little more insight on yourself. So everybody, welcome Ellen.
Oh, thank you, Barb. Thanks for the very nice introduction. I am coming to you today from beautiful Omaha, Nebraska. We have a bright sunshiny day after our blizzard last week, so we're very grateful for the sunshine, although the wind is still blowing here. We would like that to kind of calm down a little bit, and I think it would also help some of that moisture that we need. We need to stick around to keep from blowing off into Iowa here. So. We're sending all of our moisture over there with this wind. So I'm going to be talking about something that is incredibly important, and I want to convince you in the next few minutes here that I have about the importance of combating or beating that fatigue. The way that we come into work is so important, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that here. And I know throughout the week, I hope you all got to join yesterday, and that was just an excellent learning session during the kickoff at Iowa State University. And the rest of our speakers this week, we all have something in common. We all want to convince you to adopt some best practices for safety. And part of that in my conversation today is going to be to convince you to really think about your sleep patterns, how you can get some more relaxation in your life. Some of you are probably smiling about that because many of us are under some high stress situations in our jobs, but trying to find some ways of really coming into our work life rested and ready to start the day. I am at the Central State Center for Agricultural Safety and Health. We are a NIOSH-funded ag center. We're one of 12 centers across the United States that have a very simple mission, and that is to protect the health and safety of our workforce in agriculture. So we cover a 7 states region, so we're pretty busy here. We have kind of the central states, so all the way from way up, we were in Minot, North Dakota just a few weeks ago, all the way down to the Boot Heel of Missouri. So a nice big area that we can spread this information. We do research. We talk a lot about prevention. what I'm doing today, educating and some outreach with our grain handling folks. And I do want to remind everyone that our centers are, because they are funded by the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, all of our resources, if you come to us and ask for training, everything is available free of charge. So let's talk a little bit about this this sleep thing. Oh, did I come off the PowerPoint? My apologies. Let me reshare here. All right.
Yeah, you're
So,
fine. We can see it.
okay, thank you. I'm going to minimize my, there we go. So what we want to have you all walk away with today is some of the consequences. What's the burden of being tired and fatigued at work? Why are we so tired? And then some real quick practical tips to reduce that fatigue and to improve your productivity. So we all come at the word fatigue and the idea of fatigue with some different ideas. You know, if I ask you what fatigue means, you're going to give me a different answer than if I ask, my colleague in the office next to me. You all, or many of you, are working in a very physically challenging occupation, very different than maybe if you're sitting here in an office all day. So my fatigue is going to look different than your fatigue, but the bottom line is that any type of stress, the failure to sleep, not having the correct type of sleep. When we talk about sleep, we want to talk about good sleep. That is going to all come down to some very, very basic ideas. So we're going to have a quick polling question. Here's where we'd love to have your participation. And Salah is going to drop in that poll right now. And we are very interested to see with our group that we have here today about how often you feel tired and fatigued while you're working. Are you never? You know, you're always bright, chipper, you feel like $1 million at the beginning of that work day, or maybe about 25% of that time, or maybe 50% of the time you are just tired at work. And then 75%, or could you just say you're always tired at work? And as I am looking at this poll, it looks like, thank you for sharing. Love the participation, which is just excellent. I see that it looks like about 64% of you, 63% are tired about 25% of the time, and 28% about 50% of the time. Some of you, one of you, is tired almost all the time. And then we have some folks that are they're tired about 75% of the time. Only 5% say they are never tired. So you 5, I would love to have you join in the chat and tell us the great things you're doing to come to work feeling less fatigued. This is just excellent. Thank you. Thank you for participating. We truly appreciate this. And we're going to share results here so that you can see how you're all feeling at work. So we know here is the burden, and we share this because I think it's important that we all understand why we're here talking about this. If this was not a big deal and causing some injuries and ultimately some illness, I'd be doing something else this morning, and you would be listening to someone else. But here we have 43% of American workers are telling us that they are too tired to function safely at the job. That's a huge number. And I think you realize you're working in a very, an occupation that has a high rate of injuries and fatalities, and ultimately maybe illness as well. And we know that it's costing the employers about 136 billion a year with health related. Now that's in all industries. That's not just in the grain industry, but all industries are taking a huge hit financially because of health and injury related lost productivity. So something important to talk about there. And then when we talk directly about injuries, we know that they can track back, and this is probably a low number, but about 13% of our workplace injuries can be attributed directly to our workers coming in fatigued. And then when we look at long shifts, which many of you may be working long shifts, or the folks that you're supervising are working longer shifts than an 8-hour shift, about 40% increase in the risk of work-related injuries. So as each hour that worker goes beyond an 8-hour day, which is the standardized day, you see about a 40% increase in the risk. So significant, very significant. We know that the National Highway traffic folks tell us that there's about, and this once again is probably low, 100,000 police reported crashes that are direct results of driver fatigue. So we know there again, we're on the road in your industry, you may be moving grain, or you're moving other equipment on site. So this is a direct effect. And then 70 million Americans will suffer from a sleep disorder. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too, some of the sleep disorders. But 70 million is a lot of folks going to work tired. And we know when we talk about an increased risk of injury, in your industry, we know that it can affect injuries because of a lack of attention. We know slips, trips, and falls are a huge hazard in grain handling. One of the top when we look at insurance losses, one of the top causes is slips, trips, and falls. And we know that if you are not paying attention, this is something that may affect you. This reduces awareness of potential hazards, such as moving equipment. If you are not on your game and you have someone coming in with a heavy piece of equipment, you may get caught up in that. And also, we may have malfunctioning machinery that you're not catching because you are not paying that 100% attention that you need to be paying. Slower reaction times. We know that fatigue, everyone can relate to this, I think, a little bit. If you think about when you really did not have a great night's sleep, and you may be even getting in your car or your truck to back up, and you realize that you are not reacting as quickly to that whatever came up behind you. And it may be on the job as well, maybe just not leaving your driveway, which is something I notice, but it may be in your job. You have probably all can say that you've noticed that you have a slower reflex after a really poor night's sleep or two. And then we have errors in operation. And this is extremely important in your industry because with all of the machinery that you're using, such as conveyors and elevators, the trucks that you work around, if you're working in mills, fatigued workers are just more likely to make mistakes, leading to not only their injury, but maybe even equipment damage, which is not as important, but still an important piece. And then this all can lead to health effects. So we know when you get caught up in a piece of equipment, the damage that can be done to you physically. But when we talk beyond injury, we can talk about health issues as well. Chronic fatigue can lead to cardiovascular disease, stomach issues, gastrointestinal problems, or stomach and GI, and weakened immune systems. These have all been shown to be problems from lack of sleep or good sleep. Sleep disorders, we know that these are ongoing problems, and they're going to disrupt your normal sleep patterns, such as insomnia. And this is going to it's just a vicious circle. These health problems are going to then again reduce your work performance. And when you are not sleeping well at at home or getting that proper sleep, we know that then it just becomes more chronic, or more of a long-lasting problem. And then mental health strain. We all have stresses in life, and when you are not sleeping well, this just contributes to the stress, anxiety. Some folks may be suffering from depression, and we know that this can make those issues even more exaggerated. And so we know that mental strain can be at home, can be brought also into the workplace. And then we have impaired decision making. Once again, really, really important when we're talking about a job where you need to think quickly and think correctly. And judgment errors with fatigue can be measured. We have a research project ongoing right now that is going to be looking at some of the judgment errors as a result of a number of things, but fatigue being one of those. And then increased risk-taking behaviors when you're fatigued. And all of these have been researched, some of them in other industries, such as construction, but can directly relate back to the grain handling industry. And then once again, we have decreased productivity. This is where that billion-dollar number comes in to our grain handling facilities. We have reduced efficiency. You're just slower, you're less productive, and you may struggle. You may just absolutely have significant amount of work effort reduced if you are not on your game and fully rested. And then once again, the risk taking can make mistakes. And that's going to, for those of you that are involved in quality and grain handling, this can affect both quality and safety. And how about that interpersonal relationships, those dynamics on our team? If there's one industry I think about that works as a team, it is the grain handling industry. And if you have any kind of an increased worker conflict, that is going to not only affect those workers directly involved, it's going to affect productivity as well. Communication, it can break down with fatigue. You're not thinking clearly, so you're not communicating very well. And so making sure that we have these critical operations taking place in these high-risk environments is just essential. So really, this is showing the importance of tackling and combating this. So let's have some tips directly, some tips at work. What can we do at work? So if you were working at the College of Public Health here, and I was talking to you about fatigue, I could talk about some things like making adjustments to your environment. So we may talk about the lighting I have here in my office, or the way that our facilities keep our office at a certain temperature. And we could talk about maybe noise, trying to reduce some noise. But unfortunately, for most of you, it is really hard to talk about the changing the environment, because we know that the environment that you work in has the lighting that it has. It has temperatures that may vary up to, probably in the winter, you may see a variation in temperature up to 60 degrees between being outside and coming into, say, a mill or a processing plant. And then the physical surroundings, really, it's hard to adjust for sound, noise. We know we can engineer out some of that, but not a lot of it. So let's go on to some things that we can affect. Regular breaks. And this is where I'm talking to the managers here, especially, making sure that you can schedule rest periods. And it may only be a 5-minute period that that they know that they can go out and get a drink of water. They may sit down. This is just cognitive restoration. It may be suggesting that on lunch breaks, someone maybe close their eyes for 20 minutes, just making that suggestion that it is okay to go out into your truck, sit down, and you may have to you may have to reduce the time that you're on that lunch break, but that important piece. And I think back about my husband works in construction, and they would always break at noon and take 10 minutes to eat, and then they would lay down on wherever their site was. They would all lay down and take about a 20-minute nap. And they found that extremely valuable to being productive for the rest of the day. How about stretching? I don't know how many folks do this regularly, but there's some really good evidence that just some stretching, 10 minutes a day can greatly reduce fatigue and prevent injury. This can really help, especially if you've had a night where you did not get that good sleep. Doing some stretches and understanding the importance of stretches. I will offer any of you here on the webinar, if you would like a laminated poster that can be put up in your break room or in the lunchroom or somewhere. If you would love to have a poster that just shows some of these very basic stretches to remind your workers and yourself about the importance, I would love to send you a laminated poster that talks about stretching. All right, I don't know how many of you have done a chat storm. It is one of my favorite things to do because it just kind of shows what we're all thinking in the second. And what we do is in the chat. Now, don't send this yet until I say go. I'm going to give you about 15 seconds to, in the chat, tell us on average how many hours of sleep you get per night. So go ahead and write that in the chat, but don't hit send. And then when I hit send, you hit it, and then we just get this flood of this, in this case, numbers. So if you could tell us on average how many hours of sleep you get per night. So go ahead and put that in the chat. And then I'm just going to ask you to go ahead and up on 3, I'm going to have you hit send. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and send and see. Let's see. And Barb, what's it look like to you on your side?
It's looking like there's a big majority of people are getting that 6 to 8 hours, but there's some of us out there that have a little work to do. Seeing a lot of 5s out there also.
Wow, that is great. So I may be preaching to the choir is what I hear you saying. Thank you. Thanks for participating in that. Just a fun way to see what everybody's got going there. So when we talk about sleep, sleep isn't just sleep. It is what we need is good sleep. And so what does that mean? What does good sleep mean? So research tells us that adults require 7 to 9 hours of good sleep. Now, any of you that have raised teenagers, that's not what they need. They actually need more sleep. And we know that babies as well. But when we reach adulthood, what we know is about 7 to 9 hours of good sleep will get us through the day, or at least through about 10 to 12 hours of our day. So we sleep in stages, and some of you may be very familiar with this, especially if you've ever had some sleep, if you've ever had some sleep therapy or talked to your doctors about sleep. But we know that in stage 1, we're kind of drowsy. That's that first 5 to 10 minutes of sleep. Stage 2 is kind of a lighter sleep. This is really important where we don't get disrupted during this light sleep phase. Lasts about 20 minutes. And then we go into a moderate sleep cycle, another 20 minutes. The deep sleep cycle, which is restorative, is stage 4, lasting about 30 minutes. And then we go into our most restorative phase, and that's stage 5, and that's our rapid eye movement stage. And if you've ever seen anyone in this stage, and you can Google this later, but it is very strange to watch someone in REM sleep, because you can literally see the eyes under the eyelids kind of moving, and very interesting. So then this sleep cycle repeats throughout that 7 to 9 hours in order to get a good night's sleep. So we know that in stage 1, we're still awake. We're just kind of, our body is gearing down. Our heart rate begins to slow. This is when you're starting to yawn, you're feeling more drowsy. and those muscles are starting to relax. This is a period where you're trying to turn that brain off and get into those good cycles of sleep. This is really a difficult cycle if you're having any distractions within this period, but extremely important into getting into stage 2. So we've got that heart rate slowing and the muscles relaxing. Then we go into a light sleep. This is where we can be easily disrupted. And so it's important that when we talk about some of the things to get good sleep, we make sure that this is happening. It's going to be about a 5 to 10 minute period. Once again, our heart rate is slowing, and we have our breathing also slowing. Our body temperature is going to start to drop, and our brain starts producing sleep spindles. And this is just interesting. It really doesn't affect how you go through this cycle, but it's just interesting to show you when if you would ever go into for a sleep study, they know when you enter this stage because they see something that looks like this on your EEG. So you've got those spindles that are showing there, and those are called sleep spindles. And then stage 3 and 4, this is where we're going into our moderately or deeper sleep, and it's going to last between 20 and 40 minutes. It's our deepest sleep. Our blood pressure and breathing rate drop significantly. Our muscles are completely relaxed. And this is where you are going to start that restorative piece of sleeping. And then our brains look like this, that delta wave, which is shown there. It's very slow, and it's associated with sleep. You can see it looks like that little dip right where that's the delta is showing our delta wave on our brain functioning. And then here is what's called the rapid eye movement, or REM. And this is really interesting. This is a lot of studies been done about the importance of REM sleep. If you don't get REM sleep, you're going to wake up fatigued. You're going to wake up tired. It lasts from 10 to 40 minutes. Our eyes, like I said, it's just kind of strange to watch someone in REM. And then our brain is very highly active. This is the point of sleep where we are integrating information that we gathered through the day. So it's really important for our memory. We'll see as we get older, our REM is not as effective. And I think that's, those of us that are aging, we understand that our memories are not quite as sharp as they used to be. But we'll see this, and you see this on these beautiful scans up in the corner here, where you can see the activity in red when you're awake and you're going through these other cycles, and then look at the activity of that brain during REM. That's phenomenal, isn't it? We know that our heart rate is going to quicken. Our body immobilizes at this point. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when I've been woken up during a REM sleep, it's like my arms, it feels like my arms aren't even there sometimes. They are so immobilized that I'm not acting quickly enough to move my arms or my legs. So it's kind of a strange thing to wake up during REM sleep. And this is really when those dreams start occurring. So insomnia, that absolutely just means no sleep. Some of the causes of this insomnia may be snoring, either your own or your partner's. Restless leg syndrome, you may just not be able to relax those muscles in those legs. You may have to get up frequently to go to the bathroom. Lack of bright light exposure during the day may cause this insomnia. If you are working in an office and not getting that light exposure, if you come in, like sometimes I get in before the sun's up and I leave and the sun's already down, especially in winter. And that is really not good for sleep patterns. We may have underlying medical or psychiatric issues. It may depend on the type of food or drink. We really need to think about what we're consuming before bedtime, and then the lack of physical activity throughout the day. If we're not getting that physical activity, this may also lead to insomnia. And then, of course, we've all experienced this, I think, that chatter, that monkey in your head that just cannot stop those. You can't get those thoughts out of your head. And those are all causes of insomnia. We know that insomnia is going to lead to some of the same issues that we've talked about earlier, right? Fatigue. You may just not feel well. You just may feel awful throughout the day if you did not get that proper sleep. Poor attention or concentration, once again, leading to those injuries and ultimately illness. Impaired performance, reduced energy or motivation. It's hard to motivate. It's hard to get be excited about anything when you are exhausted. Behavioral problems. We talked about how this may affect the workplace in irritability between workers or lack of communication. And then inability to nap. Napping, we talked about that cognitive restoration. You may not be able to do that once you get so fatigued. And then headache, upset stomachs, and once again, the chronic pain complaints. And then when we look directly at how it affects our body, the brain, of course, is affected. That's, the irritability that we see, cognitive impairment that may lead, especially in your industry, to injuries and illness, memory lapses, impaired moral judgments, decreased creativity. We all need to be creative in our jobs to get our jobs done, no matter what they are. We have increased feelings of stress and symptoms that may be similar to ADHD or hyperactivity. The heart is increased heart rate and variability, increased risk of heart disease and stroke when we have a lack of sleep. And then the gut, we can see impaired immune systems. A lot of folks who are not getting good sleep, their gut slows. So they may have issues with feeling like the gut, feeling bloated. They may feel pain within their gut. And then our muscular system is also affected. We have decreased reaction times and accuracy, tremors, and aches. So we can see this is affecting our whole system. And then we know, this is just an interesting something to talk about at dinner tonight. Being awake for about 16 hours begins to cause us what they call executive dysfunction. And that's those mental skills, right? It's the things that keep us sharp, the cognitive or the thinking skills, our behavior. Remember, we talked about that. Keep going back to that irritability, and our emotional. We can become very emotional, which in the workplace is probably not a good idea. After 18 hours, it's the same as having a blood alcohol content of about 0.05%. And 21 hours, 0.08. And that really, this is where we start seeing those slips, trips, and falls, because our balance may be impaired at this point. And then 24 hours, it's about a 0.1, much higher than the legal limit for alcohol. All right, here's my gift to you, 60-second stretch break. Let's all use it or lose it. Some of those stretches that we talked about, even just raising those arms above the head and stretching is going to decrease that feeling of fatigue. I know by about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I am sometimes mentally just kind of shot, but even a quick walk or stretch will help with that. So about 30 more seconds, we're going to let you stretch, move that head around, full circle. I can hear a little crackling in my neck, probably from not doing that stretching regularly. And then some deep breaths, and inhale and exhale deeply. And we're going to get through this next few minutes here together. When we talk about over-the-counter or prescription sleeping pills, when folks take these medications, it's really not, you are not going through that complete sleep cycle. It disrupts that cycle we talked about earlier. You may feel like you've been asleep, but you're going to have what's called the hangover effect. And that is drowsiness the next day, impaired balance, and it can affect your driving performance or obviously your work performance as well. Another horrible side, or not horrible, but it's a side effect of these sleeping pills. They can cause dizziness, which in your occupation, you do not want to be dizzy around equipment. It can cause constipation, and you can also become dependent on these depending on the type of prescription that you're using. It can cause, in some cases, night eating. So you're getting up and you're consuming food, so you're going to be gaining weight. You may do more what they call night shopping, and you may even do driving with no memory of these. So it's really important that if a doctor prescribes your pills, you understand what the side effects are, and talk to your physician about other methods too. They may have tried everything else. You may have tried everything else, and this may be the only way of you getting any sleep. But continue to think about ways that you can improve your sleep without using pills. Some folks are using melatonin. We do know that overuse and taking doses over the recommended level may result in headaches throughout the day, some nausea, and there are some adverse medication interactions. I think a lot of folks may try this without consulting their physician. That really is not a good idea, because if you're on another medication, there may be some interaction. So if you are using melatonin, do discuss it with your physician. You may become anxious or depressed. It does cause especially overdose or over the recommended dose can cause diarrhea. Daytime drowsiness. We do not want that. Dizziness and abdominal cramps. So once again, if this is something that you are using or trying, make sure that your physician is aware of this. And then what about that alcohol? We know that, in some cases, folks have tried to help their sleep pattern by taking a drink before they go to bed. And we do know that it is not only makes it more difficult to stay asleep, but it may also disrupt you going to sleep in the first place. Those sleep patterns that we talked about that are so important, you're not going through all those properly if you have alcohol in your system before bedtime. It can reduce the amount of REM. We talked about that, and that is that deep restorative sleep stage where we're integrating all the important information. We're making new connections in that brain during REM, and we want to make sure that all of those connections, especially if we're at my age, we've got to get all those connections connected. It may worsen sleep apnea, and that's where that airway collapses during sleep. We're going to talk very briefly about that. And then alcohol may make snoring worse by relaxing the muscles in your throat, mouth, and nose. And those of us that either snore or sleep with a snore, this is something we really, really, really want to avoid. And then it may also activate sleepwalking and sleep terrors. So let's go on in the next little bit together and talk about some life-saving sleep tips. And I don't think that's an exaggeration, because when you talk about working in a high risk, high hazard occupation, I think we can say that not being fatigued is life-saving. All right, one more chat storm. So remember, don't hit send until I say go, but I'm going to give you just a few seconds, 15 to 20 seconds here. So if you go to your chat and add your secret, because it looks to me like a lot of you are sleeping well. If you had a colleague or if you are a safety manager, how would you talk to your staff, your workers about getting good sleep? If you had to make a recommendation, what would that recommendation be? So I'm going to give you just a few more seconds, and then I am going to tell you on 3, let's hit go. So 1, 2, 3, and go. Let's see what we've got here. All right. Yeah, very good recommendations. Wow, excellent. I love that. Oh, perfect. Perfect. And as I'm finishing up here, go ahead and browse through those. I think maybe Catherine and Barb and Salah, we might send a little word cloud of these and let people see these, because really some great recommendations here. I appreciate these very much. Thank you. All right. Here is, according to many experts, the number one best thing you can do to get great sleep. And that means getting up at the same time every day and keeping that sleep schedule as regular as possible. And I know there's a lot of you, and depending on your age, maybe it's age dependent, but I remember many days on the weekends when we were not getting up at 5:30 in the morning. And it was really would have been felt like a torture to get up at the same time that we had to get up to get to work. But this really is important. Our bodies are really depend on consistency to stay healthy. And one way of doing that is to get up at the same time every day. Now, if you find that you have trouble doing that, and there is something called sleep restriction therapy. And I should share with you, we will share all of these, this PowerPoint as a PDF with all of you. If any of you are safety managers out there and would like to reach out to me if you do need the PowerPoint, let me know. But a PDF will be available. So if any of these sleep tips or something that you would like to share, we would love to have you do. So, and the sleep restriction therapy is very briefly, you're going to keep track of those sleep hours for 1 week. So if you slept, you find that you're sleeping only 6 hours a night. So find that average number of hours and start by allowing only that number of hours in bed for a full week. And then you start adding 15 minutes of sleep each week until you wake up before that alarm. And what this does is you're training your body. You're training your body to sleep in a consistent manner for a consistent amount of time. Now, for me, I'm an 8-hour person. I can function very well after 8 hours. With 6 hours, I'm not functioning as well, but some of you may function very well 6. So you have to find your perfect number of hours for yourself. And then I saw some of you do this as your tip. You're going to create some mental triggers. So like we do with kids, we put them in a warm bath, we read them a book, put on the PJs. And then something that really helps me is to create a to-do list in my head. And what that does is it clears that out. Because, for instance, when I've been to bed last night, I knew I was doing a webinar in the morning. And I'm thinking, do I have everything ready? Is this ready? Is this ready for me? And I could go through that checklist, and I did not dream about that webinar last night, which is really a good thing. I did not have that in my subconscious. So really creating some of these mental triggers and just having a routine, I think, is the key there. Stop wearing restrictive clothing. Or any at all. If it tangles around you and you're turning over, if it's pushing against your bladder, if you have a waistband that you wake up and there's an impression on your, on your skin, if you're wearing socks that are too tight, you probably want to try something else, either less restrictive clothing or just, get naked, as the guy says down there. And anything that causes too much heat, you need to get rid of. Set that nighttime temperature a little lower than we might have it through the day. We do remember that one stage where our bodies are cooling down. That is essential. We need to get that body temperature cool down. When the skin cools down, it signals that brain that it is time to go to sleep. Now, if you're cold feet, you got those cold feet, you can always place something warm like a hot water bottle. Remember we saw it sounds old school, but you can still buy them at Walgreens, or a heating pad or something that we heat up in our microwave. And then you kind of can kick that off later in the night, which I find that I do if the socks aren't warm enough for you. Focus on that sleep position. spine aligned, arms and legs not bent too much. If you stack your legs, you may find that you're having some leg pain throughout the day. Our experts say that on your back is best unless you have sleep apnea. And on your side, if you do tend to stack those legs, try putting a pillow between the legs for hip support. If you have a rotten pillows or mattress, now is a good day as any to get rid of those pillows and find something that is supporting your head very well. For a mattress, that may involve more of an expenditure. So just consider that maybe a nice ask it for your Christmas or birthday gift. And fat pillows are only good for propping up to read. Now, it says nothing else, but they do say that if you are congested, it can help with clearing that congestion at night by propping. But really, you're misaligning that spine when you've got your head up on a pile of pillows. Once in bed, do a body inventory, focus on one body part at a time from head to toe, and relax each one. And that's just a mental exercise, isn't it? And what it's doing, by you doing that, you're thinking about your body itself. You're not thinking about how you've got a whole bunch of grain coming in tomorrow and you're not sure, if you have enough guys to process it or whatever. You're getting all of this stuff out of your head by focusing on your body itself instead of your worries. And as I mentioned before, please talk to your physician. If you are having trouble sleeping, there are some things they will test. They'll test your iron level. They also will and you can do this, you can have a really good discussion with your pharmacist. They are really good at understanding which medications may affect your sleep. So next time you go in to pick up your medications, just go to that counter that says questions and ask them if anything that you have are currently taking may be affecting your sleep. And they will really be a good free source, by the way, to ask that question. Get outside. Let's get some sunlight. Today is a beautiful day in Omaha. And so I would love to sneak outside for a little bit of vitamin D. And dim those lights before you go to bed. I know we talk a lot about the lights coming off our screens, whether it be our phones or our computers, and how that is affecting our sleep patterns. It's directly affecting our hormone levels. And then please ask and talk to your physician before taking any vitamins as well. But D3 is one that you can take if you're not getting quality sunlight. Exercise and add some activity, right? Keep upright. And we know that if we lose even a little bit of weight loss can improve our breathing at night. And I know it certainly improves my snoring if I'm a little less, if I can take off a few pounds. Be mindful what we eat. And I think this is just for our general health as well. Eat real food, drink lots of water, and avoid that alcohol, especially before bedtime. And then establish a caffeine curfew. And this can really help. And I think most folks understand this. Even if you don't feel that jolt that caffeine may give you or used to give you, it's really important to limit the intake, especially right before bed. And I love this study. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but Google this. It's really great. It's a study that they did looking at the effects of caffeine. And it was done actually by NASA. And this Matthew Walker, who was involved in this study, said caffeine is a stimulant drug. It's the only addictive substance that we readily give to our kids. But what they did was they gave spiders a variety of substances. And if you look at the caffeine, it's obviously that spider was thinking it was moving a little bit differently than it normally would without any chemical. Get those electronics away from your bed. No blue light or any light appearing in that bedroom whatsoever. We a few years ago took our phones outside of our bedroom. We've got kids who work in high risk industries, so we are very concerned. We want to be able to hear if there's a problem, but I am convinced that I will hear my phone ringing even if it's out, a couple rooms away. So use schedule brightness settings, and that's really easy to do on most of our, if you go into the settings app, you can set that brightness down so that it will actually dim throughout the night if you are someone who likes to look at the phone before bedtime. That will help. Get those devices turned off. Like I said, we are going to always keep ours on, but we do take it out of our room. And you can set your cell phone to ring only for selected calls, and we have done that. So our kids and their spouses can get hold of us, but maybe not that telemarketer. Oh, this is a hard one. Oh gosh, kick those pets or kids out of the bed. It says here kicking that snoring partner out, and our experts that we talked to said, that will obviously improve your sleep, but it may, it could affect some other parts of your relationship. So be careful about that one. But if there is paused breathing or gasping, we need to check for sleep apnea. And sleep apnea very quickly is just when our throat and our nasal passages tend to collapse. And so we need to have that air forced in through the CPAP device. And some of you may have experience with this. It really will improve your sleep. If you have been diagnosed with sleep apnea, it will greatly relieve your improve your sleep once you get onto a CPAP machine, because what it's doing is it's providing that air that's being cut off otherwise. Use a humidifier during winter, especially, and keep it clean. Dry winter air is a factor in sinus issues. So if you use a fan, and we always have a fan, mostly, a lot of that is white noise too, to get that air moving and keeping you cooler. And then that non-lighted noise machine, or that white noise. My husband and I both have tinnitus, or ringing in our ears. And we have found that we have actually found a white noise that matches that, so we don't hear that quite as much. So another little tip for those of you that have some hearing damage from, ours is from equipment and hogs. And then use that bedroom for only two things. You're sleeping in it and you're having sex. No television, because intimacy is going to improve that sleep, and sleep is going to equal a higher libido. So there's a whole bunch of benefits to keeping things, keeping that television, keeping maybe a radio going, keeping those things to a minimum is going to have a full circle of benefits. And then if you've got that monkey mind, try taking some time in the evening to process your day. Make sure, like I do, I have to jot down notes about the next day. And then I don't know if any of you have tried this, but I do love box breathing. So I did just added this to our presentation. And this is just a way of doing some breathing exercises before I go to bed. Helps me making sure that I'm breathing and relaxed. And it's just it's an inhale for 4 seconds, a hold for 4 seconds, an exhale for 4 seconds, and a hold for 4 seconds. And that helps with my stress levels. Stop watching that television or using the computer, the iPad, the smartphone at least an hour before you go to bed. And if you can't break that habit, use a blue light reducing screen cover or glasses. They've got some of those blue light glasses you can use. Try cognitive behavioral therapy, as if you just are having tried everything you can think of, there are folks that are licensed sleep therapists that really can help you tackle that insomnia. And they are really, really good at this. We have a link for more tips, or I can send you a list if you want to contact me. And I will, like I said, if you'd like a laminated copy of those stretching, please let me know, and I'll be happy to get those in the mail to you immediately. A good laugh and a long sleep are the best cures in the doctor's book. And I love this, not only because I love hogs. I don't want to raise them anymore, but I do love them. But I think this is really true. If we can find some joy before, especially before bedtime, and then go into a deep sleep, we're going to have wake up much less fatigued in the morning. And I would at this point invite anyone that has questions or I think we've got a little time. Well, we got a minute. We've got a minute for questions. So I will stop sharing.
All right. Oh my gosh, Ellen, thank you so much. Information that isn't just relevant at work. We tend to think of all safety things or all things that affect our safety are only things that we're doing at work. And to have this information about, our personal life and what we do there, can also affect our safety in general life. So I have a few questions that people have sent. Um, so we're going to go back to kind of just that lack of sleep. How does brain fog figure into this equation?
Oh, it is. That is one of the major causes of brain fog. We can have some other causes. It may be our medications we're taking, and there may be some other physical, health effects that cause that. But it is absolutely one of the number one causes of brain fog. And I think all of us probably have experienced it. And it can cause us to be distracted, and it can cause us to have memory lapses that
Yeah.
we can't afford to have especially when we're at work.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes we think, oh, grab some caffeine or something else. And some of the stuff you told us today, that isn't always the case. That's not necessarily helping us. You did talk about melatonin use, but I wanted to just double check on the information. Somebody asked, how does taking melatonin supplements affect your sleep and getting into the REM sleep?
Yeah, and that's what some experts are worried about. It became kind of a fad. Some of us, I know it wasn't when I was raising kids, we didn't have that, that wasn't an option. A lot of people are giving it to their children. And I think what now a lot of pediatricians and other physicians are worried about is the effects of chronic use of melatonin. It started off just using it for travel because it can be very effective when you have jet lag. But then people started using it as an every night type of effect, and what it does is it's the REM that it affects. And so I
Okay.
think those of you that are using it every night, talk to your physicians and see if that is their recommendation.
How can we convince our young workers to get good sleep before coming to work every day?
Wow, that may be the toughest question. When you think back when you were 19, 20, 21, and you got invited out on a Thursday night. I don't know why everything good happened on a Thursday, right? The concerts and everything, and you have to go into work the next day. Trying to convince someone to leave a concert or leave a party. So I think what we need to talk about, especially with our young workers, is on that Sunday night, and on weekends, trying to get up. Try some of these tips, but essential that they understand what the effects are. Because I think educating, even though they may not take action now, after feeling pretty crappy for a number of days or a month or a year or whatever, they may figure out that this is something that really is affecting their job. And it can be discussed when you have your evaluations, when you're talking to folks, it can be discussed that this may be something that's affecting your work performance and something that they can take action on, an actionable item.
Um, there's a lot of reasons that companies used shift work,
Mhm.
whether it's, 2 weeks days, 2 weeks nights, or, 48 hours of this, a day off, 48 hours of a different schedule. Again, there's a lot of reasons. Is it to make sure everybody has the opportunity for a shift pay differential? Is it to make it fair, people working nights or graveyards or days, to get that family time? Again, a lot of reasons that people may do it. How does that affect us if we're supposed to be getting these good sleep patterns as you talked about?
You can't. And it's the evidence is there. I could give a whole another hour talking about shift work. And maybe that's another conversation for, I mean, you don't have to invite me back, but someone talking about the effects of shift work. And there is a lot of research that shows not only the work effects, but the health effects of your workers doing this type of work. And I know we have a kid on the railroad, and it tells, right? It really tells on them not having any kind of a sleep pattern for a long time as an engineer. And he's, he has tried to find some moderation, but the short answer is it's never good. But I understand why business needs it, but we need to find better ways to get our folks, keep our folks healthy and safe.
You talked about sleep apnea. How do I know if I have sleep apnea versus, hey, listen to me today. Is it just congestion or allergies? How do I know if it's sleep apnea?
If you sleep with someone, they're going to tell you. Because it is something that if you've ever slept with someone with apnea, it is very disruptive, and it's scary. Sometimes they'll just stop breathing. So that is your first clue. If you're sleeping by yourself, the fatigue, waking yourself up, with and kind of gasping for air might be a clue as well. But chronic fatigue, you need to get in and see someone. And these sleep studies, and actually even our smartphones will measure our sleep patterns now, which I forgot to mention, but it really is a good way to get an idea of what's happening. But for someone who believes they may have apnea, it is essential to get in and get tested.
Okay. If anybody has any last minute questions, again, please pop them out there in the chat box. But we had a lot of great comments and a lot of great engagement from people today too, as we looked at the chat box. You talked a little bit about life changes, and there was a lot of chat about that. Just life changes affect the way we rest, whether it's female cycles, hormonal changes in both men and women. We just think of, in a sense, menopause as a female thing, but men go through hormonal changes also. Somebody recommended, um, I'm not going to say it right, binaural beats. I'm probably not pronouncing it right, with your headphones. So I'm assuming it has something similar to some white noise.
Sure.
Again, take what we learn from work safety and apply it to our entire life. That's what it affects too. And then self-awareness. What awake type are you? Morning, evening, intermediate, and how is this affecting us? You're right, and thank you for that comment. We have to recognize what it is in ourselves. A lot of great information today, and Ellen, thank you very much for sharing this information for everybody. Kat has posted that in the chat box. So everybody make sure you scan the chat box here for the next few minutes. Again, our certificates of attendance. Ellen had shared resources to us in both Spanish and English that were posted in the chat box. The stretching poster, and email grainsafety2010@gmail.com if you have any other questions. We can get those to Ellen. And again, a lot of great information in the chat box today. Ellen, thanks again, as always, for this great things that you share with us. And thank you all for attending day 2 of Stand Up for Grain Safety. Have a great week.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.